Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
We put our jackets
really good
on.
at that.
Yeah, the timing's there's a beat to it, a little bit of a cadence. Yeah. It was weird last week, or 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks in the past, or a week in the future, whenever it was, when Norm was at CES and we were sitting in your office with the dogs,
where it was warm.
It was warm there. We've all put jackets on now. It's cold. I have gloves in my pocket, but I'm not going to put them on because I don't want people to give me grief. What should we talk about today?
Let's talk about work ethic.
This might be a preview of something to come.
I wanted to talk about work ethic because it's come up occasionally at work, and Jamie and I talk about people that work with us and people that we see and that kind of thing, and it's really worth starting a conversation about.
Well, because one of the things I found as a magazine editor, and Norm knows about this, is that the difference between somebody who is 24 years old and coming out of college and is amazing, and somebody who's 24 years old and coming out of college and is terrible is, 20% effort, basically.
It's really not that much.
Yeah, it's
and there's an oft quoted phrase about paying your dues.
But for me, it's not about paying dues.
Well, I don't think it is either, but it's an interesting, there's a way to look at it, because I've always thought, see, I wanted to get into the special effects industry since the time I was able to work.
Since you knew there was a special effects industry.
Precisely. Yeah. But I didn't really crack it until I was maybe 26. And at 26, I had enough build experience behind me and enough knowledge and real work experience to know what I wanted out of it. And if I'd gotten into it earlier, I wouldn't have done very well.
And how, so just to give context, how many years from point A to from wanting to getting in?
Well, so I worked for my first special effects company in New York, Peter Wallach Enterprises, the son of Eli Wallach, the actor. These are the guys that did the Peter Gabriel Sledgehammer video. All the stop motion animation.
Is that the one with the pig?
No, it's all the animation happening all around Peter Gabriel.
Got it.
And I was like 19, and I didn't like working there. I felt like I wasn't doing anything that I found very interesting, and I didn't enjoy it.
You weren't learning.
I wasn't learning, but I wasn't ready. Let's put it that way, because in any industry, even, there are people who would love to be magazine editors, right?
Yes.
And having been a magazine editor, you know both how great it is and all about the drudgery.
Wonderful, horrible job.
Right.
Yeah.
And every job is that way. Mm-hmm. Every single job is that way. And film special effects, which sounds like model making specifically, sounds like a great thing. But honestly, no one, I think, would dispute this. 90% of it is spray painting the same thing 150 times.
Yeah, and sanding and doing all the...
It's absolutely exhausting, drilling 1,500 holes and stuff like that. And that can be crushing.
If I ever proof a 135-word review of something a product that I could care less about again, I'll be okay. That is not something I miss.
Right. At the same time, when you do that and you do it well, first of all, when you do that, about 10% of the time, you get to do some fun stuff. You get to dress something and make it look cooler. Mm-hmm. You get to solve a problem. And if you do that well, you get to do a little more of it next time, and you get to do a little more of it until the point at which, at this point, Jamie and I have a team that cleans up after us. We don't have to clean up after ourselves. Now, we earn that by really understanding the totality of what we do by doing all of the different parts of it.
Well, and part of that is that at this point, your time is valuable to the point that it's better for you to go do something else than to clean up your mess.
Absolutely. But economics. So to get back to that dues paying, to that first part of where you really dedicate yourself to the drudgery, you dedicate yourself to the brute force and kind of muscular work of churning out the reviews, of doing the leg work that is not fun and not glamorous. But you have to do it. You have to understand the rules of the genre that you're participating in.
You're basically saying wax on, wax off.
Totally wax on, wax off. But completely.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly it. You're learning skills that are going to benefit you later on down the line.
Right.
And a lot of times you're learning it the hard way by doing something over and over and over again. And nobody says, hey, you need to go learn how to do this. You just eventually reach a point where it's easier to go learn how to use a new machine or learn a new skill than it is to wait for somebody else to get to do that part for you, and it's more effective for whatever it is. I'm working back and forth between your stuff and our stuff now, but
Yeah.
I mean, you have to learn those skills, and nobody comes like this is the truth. No one comes out of college or trade school or whatever it is you're learning, culinary school, knowing what you need to do to succeed.
No.
5, 1, 2, 3, 7, 10 years down the line.
And more likely than not, they're learning what they think they know is completely the wrong way, and they have to basically relearn, because what they teach you in school is not what you're going to be using in real life.
And if you think you understand something completely before you start working on it, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Because you don't. Because there are people who've been doing it a lot longer than you and still would claim not to fully understand it. Now, all of this is a long way of going back to work ethic, because what we're talking right now is just work. Like, that's the standard thing with work. To do anything well, you really have to understand it from the bottom up and dedicate yourself to it. But let's talk about work ethic, about bringing in somebody 24 out of college who's amazing versus someone who's just okay or someone who's terrible. And it's fantastic that you put it that way about the 20% difference. Is there are a surprisingly few amount of people who revel in working hard. That is the thing that I find most shocking about the adult world. And look, I have to admit, I didn't know how to work hard until my mid-20s. In fact, if I have one regret about my past, that's it, that I wasted a lot of time early on not working hard, because somehow I thought that being smart and being clever and being pretty good at a lot of things somehow granted me some free pass to success, which it totally does not.
And unless you are incredibly smart. Like Stephen Hawking.
Even then, I'm sorry, but even then, and I think that, I think Gladwell would agree with me. Even then, I still think you still have to put in the hours. You might have something to contribute, and you certainly might contribute something in your field faster than somebody else would have who did the same amount of effort if you're really smart. But in order to know what you're contributing and where, you have to revel in working hard. And this is something. When you find someone around you who is like, you can just tell all they want to do is kick ass at everything you give them. We had somebody at Industrial Light and Magic once sent her out to paint some things, spray paint. And it's one of these crushing things of like, spray paint 90 of these, right? So she went outside to spray paint them. She came back in and said to her supervisor, all right, I'm done. Is there anything else to do? And he goes, you're done? Really? That was amazing. That was like 40 minutes. It's just, no. I've only finished a third of them, but really, it's so boring. I don't want to do anymore. Is there anything else I can do? And he goes, yeah. You can go home. But I know, but that was a big screw up not to realize it. And granted, ILM was a place where that kind of screw up wouldn't get you hired again. At the same time, like when we bring someone on our crew who is running between tasks as opposed to someone who's walking between tasks, and it's like, okay, so my kids are 13 years old. They don't like doing chores. No one likes doing chores.
They're called chores because they're not fun.
And that's one of the best parts about being a parent of 13-year-olds is putting them to work, right?
Yeah.
So I had to have a talk with one of my kids a couple weeks ago. I had to say, listen, I know you don't like doing the chores. Yeah. And I said, it's totally clear on your face when you're annoyed at having to do them. Yeah. And I said, you have to stop letting us know. Because we don't care. You need to just understand that this is one of the things you've got to do. And I'm teaching him a lesson, right? This is an important life lesson. If a supervisor gives you work and you make it clear on your face that you're not going to enjoy doing it, all you're doing is creating some new thread in his mind of like, wow, that guy doesn't like doing this thing. I don't want to care about that.
Yeah.
This thing needs to get done, and we have people to do this, and that's one of the things.
Well, so I did an internship on Capitol Hill when I was 18 years old. The first thing, the chief of staff, who was this wonderful woman who was grizzled and old and like wouldn't have been surprised if she was chewing a stogie 20 years in the past, right? She told me on my first day, look, there is a lot of horrible stuff that you have to do in this job, from 142-pound me trying to lift a 5-gallon thing of water onto the water cooler, down to sitting and answering horrible letters from constituents who are pissed off that they got denied for disability, right? Like, these were my jobs. She said, here's the stuff that you have to do. As soon as you empty this inbox, then you can go do fun stuff. And for me, fun stuff was going and sitting and watching committee meetings and taking notes on that stuff, or going and giving tours to constituents who are in town or whatever.
Right.
It's great stuff. It's amazing and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
but you had to do the bad stuff, even on a day-to-day basis, to get to the point that you could do the good stuff.
And the thing is that when you dedicate yourself to working hard, when you dedicate yourself, not every one of your employers is necessarily going to see that. There are certainly some who might take advantage of you or might not let you know, but it is the fastest track to getting rehired. Because when you find someone who's smart and really wants to work hard, man, you as an employer now, I will tell you, I want to, when I find those people, I make sure that I will keep them around me as long as I have interesting shit to do.
There's a special place in your brain where you
absolutely. When I see those people, I just think that person should never leave our sphere because they are so dedicated and working so hard and clearly having a great time at it. And I'm going to find fun things for them to do. I'm going to keep them interested at the same time as all the other stuff that they've got to do. And good employers will always do that.
Right. And so the other part of this is if so you come out from school, you don't know everything. You need to know that right up front.
You need to know that you know almost nothing.
And sometimes the way that you were taught in school, regardless of where you went to school, is the wrong way.
It doesn't really track.
And even if it's the right way and they're doing it the wrong way, if you come into a new place, it's their you follow the place you work's rules.
Yeah.
You don't make your own, at least until you're in charge, right? I don't remember where I was going with that at all.
Employers also.
I appreciate the fact that I'm nodding with you about graduating from school and I never went to school.
But work ethic is a two-way street. Also, I mean, you have to want to work hard, but also you have to also find motivation. And people
you have to find motivation, and a great place to find motivation is to work for places where you feel like you're learning something, or you feel like you have something to learn. I've said it before. I've had most of my jobs for an hour or a year, and I've had several jobs which were. I once worked in a poster shop, literally for 2.5 hours. And I remember one of my coworkers, however brief they were my coworker, they were like, "Oh, you're the new guy, huh? See how long you last." I mean, and they just knew the turnover was high because the people that owned the place were jerks and the work was awful and boring and no fun. And I mean, not even no fun. Plenty of work is awful and boring and no fun, but you might be working for people who you like, who you will learn from. And that counts for everything.
Well, and if you're not working someplace that you're going to learn something, then you have to ask, why are you working there? Sometimes, I mean, admittedly, as we get older, sometimes you end up working someplace because you have 2 kids and they're getting ready to go to college and yada yada.
Really, having that kind of choice, having that kind of choice is a luxury. It's a luxury that we have been lucky enough to be able to have come to a place in our careers where we can kind of choose where we work and have a real measure of control over it. And that's, I just want to make sure I understand, it's said that we appreciate that not everybody has that. But at the same time, working hard, I found once I really knew how to do it it can be its own reward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing that feels better than at the end of the day sitting down and thinking, wow, I can't believe that I got these 6 things done today.
Totally.
When each one is a normal day's work, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you just get in the zone. The other lesson of that is if you want to choose where you work, keep your expenses low. Right? Our friend Brian is a perfect example of this. He decided he wanted to move to Hawaii and be a beach bum and surf and work a little bit and found a way to make a job that, we live in a time
spectacularly well at that.
We live in a time where you can literally write your own ticket if you can make something or build something or provide a useful service or whatever. And then in that case, you don't have to go work for the man and you can do shit your own way. And people, then you are the smart one. The challenge with that, though, I think, is that the risk is that you don't learn stuff.
Right.
Like once you're isolated and working by yourself.
Well, I think that one of the things that Brian has done is he's capitalized. We're talking about Brian Lamb. He's capitalized really well on his deep knowledge, both of his industry and himself.
Yeah.
And managed to bring those two in great concert to each other.
It turns out there's an audience for that.
It turns out there's an audience for that. But I mean, we're all friends of Brian, so we know him really well. I have a hard time imagining that anything he'd choose to do wouldn't be interesting.
No, I mean, he is one of the more consistently interesting people I've ever met. Yeah,
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, work hard. And
I mean, I guess the thing is that I get a lot of email from kids asking, "Oh, how do I be a Mythbuster? How do I get into the special effects industry?" And I remember I had this when I was hiring people in special effects, and other supervisors have told me, "Don't bring me a portfolio of your artsy stuff. I can't tell anything about you from artsy stuff. It's stuff that you made up, so I don't know how close or far it is from what you intended. If you build a perfect '57 Chevy from scratch,
Yeah.
I can hire you in a heartbeat because I know what one of those looks like and I know how well you did at it. And your dedication to that precision is something that I can utilize. And when I've hired you, if you are then applying yourself in that way, the way I learned to when I was in my mid-20s, you will find no shortage of people who want to keep on hiring you and keep on giving you work. You really won't.
And the other thing is, you don't want to be like, don't try to be something that already exists. I mean, sometimes if you want to be an airline pilot, go be an airline pilot. Don't make up a new career path for yourself. But if you want to say, I want to be a Mythbuster, I want to break into this writing circle and hang out with Michael Chabon and that's really unlikely to happen.
Oh, but
it's build your own circle and start your own thing and go. I mean, am I wrong?
I'm not sure you're wrong. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're right there. I tend to think of like the thing that you feel like you really want to do is the thing to pursue. You will not end up there.
Absolutely.
And that won't be what you want to do 5 years later. But
Absolutely.
at that moment, that's what gives you the most motivation.
The punchline.
No, that's true.
One of Kurt Vonnegut's oft-quoted statements was that the punchline to his favorite dirty joke, and I don't know what the joke is keep your hat on, we could end up miles from here. And he always thought it should be the prologue quote in all of his books. And I totally agree with that. I remember being 19 and meeting a girlfriend's mom, and the mom, after talking to me over dinner one night, she said, "What are you going to be doing in 5 years?" And I said, "I don't know. I think I'm going to be," and I named something. I thought it was maybe graphic design or animation or something, because that's what I was working in at the time. And she listened to me give this long explanation that a 19-year-old would give of such a question. And then she said, "Nah, you're not going to be doing any of that." She's like, "You have no idea what you'll be doing in 5 years. You'll be doing something really cool, but it's not going to be anything you could imagine right now." And it's one of the greatest things that anyone gave me, because she was totally right. When I checked in 5 years later, I was like, man, she was so right. And every 5 years since then, it's been exactly the same. I could never have imagined where I ended up from where I started.
Well, and that, like, but along the way, you've loved it all. And
Absolutely.
that makes working hard a lot. Like, if you're doing something you love, it makes the whole thing a lot easier.
Absolutely.
When we were working on magazines, I absolutely love telling people about. I like teaching people stuff.
Yeah.
It's super fun. It's very rewarding. And when somebody calls, and even if it's just, "Hey, I bought the right phone because of you, thanks," it's really gratifying at a lot of different levels.
Totally.
And it makes not sleeping and all the weird being in Vegas for a week at the worst time of the year for sickness and illness and sweaty rooms that smell horrible. It makes it all a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So working hard. That's our take on it. I don't know if we came to any conclusions about
Change the old saying. It's not stay in school, kids. It's just work hard.
it. It's yeah, totally. Work hard. It's funny. We've brought people onto our crew at times over 10 years who showed up and didn't really work that hard. And it's always been surprising to me when someone shows up on our crew, because honestly, the first question I get out in the world is, "Are you guys hiring?"
Yeah.
And I think there is absolutely no shortage of people who want to come and kick ass for us.
Infinite candidates.
And if you are on our crew and you are not kicking ass, there's no place for you there.
Yeah. And it's not. I mean, you guys have a punishing schedule, but it is not a punishing schedule by TV standards.
No.
You go home and eat dinner with your family every night.
Go home and eat dinner with our families. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's So kick ass. That's
Kick
the
ass.
lesson.
Be awesome.
Okay. Well, I guess
there we
on
go.
that note,
Let's wrap it up.
that's it. Again, thank you guys for reviews on iTunes.
We
all
love
that
those
stuff.
reviews.
They're great. They like people, just so people understand, the best thing that they can do to help us promote the podcast isn't download the podcast from iTunes. It is go to iTunes or Microsoft, the Xbox Music Store, and write a review, because that stuff bumps us up faster than anything
Not
else.
only that, but we read them and they change what we do. If you have ideas for shows that we can do, stuff you want to hear about,
We watch on Twitter and the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely.
And send questions.
Yeah.
Send questions.
The email address is podcast@tested.com. Put Adam questions for Adam in the subject line, and and we will do another question podcast in the not too distant future.
Terrific.
See you guys next week.
Bye.